For most of my life, I didn't need anyone else to call me out because I was already doing it myself. Whenever I fell short, whether it was with my wife, at work, or just in my own head, I'd start tearing myself down. I'd say things like, "You're such an idiot," or "You should have known better, you'll never get this right." I thought being harsh with myself would push me to try harder, that would keep me from messing up again, that it would make me do better. But it didn't. What it really did was keep me stuck inside of myself, always in judgment, always feeling like nothing was ever enough. And when you live in that headspace, it doesn't just stay inside, it actually spills out of you. It makes you harder to be around. It makes you less patient, less open, less forgiving. And in my marriage, it made it almost impossible to be vulnerable, to admit when I fell short, or to accept my wife's humanity and my own. That's the cost of self-contempt. It doesn't just punish you, it poisons your relationships. And if you're anything like me, this has probably impacted your marriage too. That's what we're going to be talking about in this episode. I'm going to tell you about how contempt shows up in your head and in your marriage. I'll explain the two forms it takes, shame and grandiosity, and I'll teach you how to step off the contempt conveyor belt so you can show up steady instead of stuck. Plus, I'll give you some action steps and reflection questions you can use right now so you can start being a better husband to your wife and better to yourself as well. So let's get started. Welcome to Better Husband, the podcast that helps you answer the question, how can I be a better husband? I'm Angelo Santiago, a men's marriage and relationship coach, and every week I bring you practical insights to help you strengthen your marriage and become the best husband you can be. Now, what I know about myself is this. When I fall short, even in small ways, that voice in my head can be brutal. You're an idiot. You'll never get this right. Why do you always screw this up? Really? You did it again? I've seen it play out in my marriage more times than I can count. And I've heard it from men I coach too. They'll tell me I talk to myself in ways I never talk to anyone else, and in ways I'd never allow anyone else to talk to me. That's the power of contempt. And let me be clear about what I mean by that word, because it can sound abstract. Contempt is when you hold someone in disdain, when you see them as worthless, beneath you, broken. It's not just disappointment or frustration, it's a toxic, corrosive judgment. And when you turn contempt inward at yourself, it looks like shame. You don't just feel bad for what you did, you feel like you are bad. You're not just a man who made a mistake, you start to believe you are the mistake. When you turn contempt outward, it looks like grandiosity. You flip it on her. She's too sensitive. She's always making me the problem. She's the one who needs to change. Two sides of the same coin. Shame pulls you one down, grandiosity pushes you one up, but both are fueled by contempt. And contempt, no matter where you aim it, will eat your marriage alive. Contempt isn't just an inner problem, it's a relational problem. Because when you're in contempt, whether it's shame pulling you one down or superiority pushing you one up, you can't be open. You can't be vulnerable. You can't offer care. You can't even receive care. So if contempt poisons connection, what's the antidote? It's self-esteem, but not the kind of self-esteem most of us grew up with. You see, most men were taught that self-esteem is something you earn. You perform well, you achieve, people respect you, and then you get to feel good about yourself. But that's not real self-esteem. That's conditional worth. There are three common ways we build our worth on shaky ground. The first is called performance-based self-esteem. I matter when I succeed, when I make money, when I hit the gym, when I nail the presentation. The next is other-based self-esteem. I matter when people like me, when my boss approves of me, when my wife praises me, when I'm seen as the good guy. And the last one is attribute-based self-esteem. I matter because of what I have, the house, the cars, the muscles, the kids at the right school. The problem is every one of those can collapse in an instant. If you lose the job, if you lose the praise, if you lose the status, suddenly you feel like you've lost your worth. Real, healthy self-esteem is different. It's not based on what you do, what you have, or how people see you. It's based on the simple truth that you matter because you exist. That means you can hold yourself in warm regard despite your imperfections. You can say, I blew it, and I'm still worthy. I failed in that moment and I still matter. That's the kind of self-esteem that can carry you through the inevitable screw-ups in marriage, because you will screw up. You will get it wrong. You will hurt her sometimes. But if you can hold yourself with steadiness instead of contempt, you can recover, repair, and keep moving forward. That's real self-esteem. And without it, contempt takes over, either in the form of shame or in the form of grandiosity. Because contempt is like a coin. On one side is shame, on the other is grandiosity. Different faces, same metal. When contempt turned inward, it shows up as shame. I'm the problem. I'm worthless. I'll never get this right. Shame pulls you one down. You collapse. You shut down. You stop trying. And when you're stuck there, your wife loses the steady, grounded man she longs for. When contempt turns outward, it shows up as grandiosity. You're the problem. You're too sensitive. You should be grateful. I'm even trying. Grandiosity pushes you one up. You correct her. You dismiss her. You put yourself above the rules. And when you live there, she loses trust in your care. Two sides of the same coin. And whether you go one down in shame or one up in grandiosity, the result is the same: disconnection. That's why in relational life therapy, we talk about stepping off of the contempt conveyor belt altogether. Full respect living means no contempt toward her or anyone else, and no contempt toward yourself, period. Because you can't build intimacy on contempt. You can only build it on respect. And every moment you choose respect, you make connection possible. And here's the key. Whether you slide into shame or puff up into superiority, it's not your wise adult running the show. It's the younger part of you that learned contempt early on. That's where we need to go next. If you've listened to the podcast before, you've probably heard me talk about the adaptive child and the wise adult. If you haven't, let me just break it down for you a little bit. The adaptive child is the part of you that learned how to survive when you were young, learned how to protect you, learned how to adapt to the situations you found yourself in. If you grew up with harshness, the adaptive child may have learned to be harsh or to fight against harshness with yourself and with others. If you grew up in chaos, the adaptive child may have learned to be rigid and perfectionist. If you grew up feeling abandoned, your adaptive child may have learned to abandon yourself too, or to be so attached to others that it doesn't work. It's like having a 10-year-old version of you behind the wheel of your adult life. And that kid only knows two gears: shame one down or grandiosity one up. And the truth is this: he still shows up. He shows up in your marriage when your wife says something hard and you either collapse or fight back. He shows up at work when you make a mistake and replay it all day, tearing yourself down. He shows up with your kids when you snap at them for acting like kids because you're still carrying the harshness that you grew up with. That's the adaptive child: reactive, rigid, quick to judge. Your wise adult is different. The wise adult is steady, grounded, relational. He knows how to hold himself and others with respect, even when things go wrong. He can admit mistakes without collapsing. He can take in feedback without spiraling. He can disagree without making it war. And here's the part most men don't realize: your wife feels the difference immediately. When the adaptive child is running the show, she feels like she's married to a boy who can't handle hard moments. But when your wise adult shows up, she feels safe. She feels like she can actually bring herself to you without paying the price of your collapse or your defensiveness. That's why the work is learning how to demote the adaptive child, to literally say, I know you're trying to protect me, but you don't get to run this marriage. I do. And if you want to go deeper into this, I did an entire episode on this exact topic. Go check out episode 36, 100 Ways to Love Your Wife, and why none of them will work until you do this. Because your wife doesn't need your adaptive child. She doesn't need your harshness or your walls. She needs your wise adult, the man who's listening to this podcast right now. The man who can show up steady, open, and relational. So how do you actually get out of contempt, whether it's shame pulling you one down or grandiosity pushing you one up? That's what I'm about to show you next. I want to take a quick break to tell you that I have a brand new workshop available, and it's totally free. If you've been listening to this podcast and you're ready to go deeper, I want you to check out my training, The 3 Secrets to Becoming a Better Husband Without Endless Therapy, Hating the Process, or Pretending to Be Someone You're Not. Inside, I walk you through 3 key shifts that changed everything for me in my marriage and for the men who have used this to lead more connected, intimate, and grounded relationships. You can watch it now at betterhusbandsecrets.com, and like I said, it's totally free. It's the clearest breakdown I've ever shared of what actually changes a marriage from the inside out. So if you're ready to really do this work, go to betterhusbandsecrets.com or click the link in the show notes. Now, back to the show. If you're ready to let go of contempt so that you can meet your wife and others from a healthy place, not one up or one down, here's what you need to do. I think of it like being on a conveyor belt. Once you step on it, it only takes you in two directions, down into shame or up into superiority. And most of us just ride it automatically. We don't even realize we're on it until we've already collapsed into judgment of ourselves or into judgment of her. The practice is learning how to step off that conveyor belt, to notice when contempt is carrying you away and then choose something different. And just like with boundaries from the last episode, it's about practicing, getting in the reps, acknowledging that you won't get it right every single time, but committing to keep trying. It's a daily discipline. Here are 4 ways you can practice. 1, loving kindness. Think of someone or something you love deeply, maybe your child, maybe even your dog. Feel that warmth and care. Now direct that same energy towards yourself, especially the younger version of you who first learned contempt. This is you learning to reparent yourself with compassion. 2, dispute the shame. When the voice in your head says, I'm an idiot, don't try and cover it up with fake positivity like I'm a genius. Instead, answer with grounded truth. I made a mistake. I can learn from it. I'm still okay. And I want you to write these down. Maybe even keep a stack of index cards or Post-it notes in your pocket or on your desk. And every time that shame voice shows up, practice disputing it. Write something to show that it is not true. 3, use a mantra. This one I learned from my mentor, Terry Real, who learned it from Pia Melody in her work on this subject. I am enough and I matter. Despite my flaws, despite my mistakes, despite not being who I want to be all the time, that phrase helps you hold yourself in warm regard instead of contempt. I am enough and I matter. Just practice using this mantra to yourself, looking in the mirror whenever you feel like you are beating yourself down. And finally, number 4, full respect living. Commit to this. No contempt toward her, no contempt toward myself, no contempt towards anyone. When you notice yourself slipping into one down, into shame, or into superiority, one up, pause. Breathe yourself back to center. If you're going down, literally find yourself pulling yourself up back to health. If you're one up, you pull yourself down. You are equal as everyone else. You are worthy as everyone else, and you are human like everyone else. Now, let's make this real and actually look at situations where this could come up. Let's say you're at work. You botch a presentation. Without practice, the shame voice takes over. You're useless. You suck at this. You're going to get fired. With practice, you say, hey, I blew it, but I'll prepare differently next time. That's stepping off the conveyor belt. With your wife in your marriage, she points out something you forgot, and without the practice, you puff up into superiority. You say something like, you're too demanding, or you never appreciate me, or all the other things that I do. But with practice, you breathe, you stay center, you say, you're right, I missed that, let me fix this. With your kids, they act out at bedtime, and without practice, you snap. Why can't you just behave? With practice, you notice the harshness rising. You pause, you step back into your wise adult, and you tell yourself, all right, this is tough. Let's try again. That's what it looks like to step off the contempt conveyor belt. It's all about being steady, respectful, and real to yourself and to others. And when you practice this, you'll notice something different. You're no longer at the mercy of shame or superiority. You're living from respect for yourself and for the people you love. Here's how I want you to start putting this into practice right now. This week, catch one contemptuous moment that you experience. It might be you aiming it at yourself, like you're such a screw up, or it might be aimed at your wife, like, oh, she's impossible to deal with. Write it down. Just naming it breaks the automatic cycle, and you now have an awareness of when this is happening. Number 2, dispute that thought, that idea with grounded truth. Don't swing into fake positivity. Instead of saying, I'm an idiot, try, I made a mistake, but I'm still okay. Instead of, she's impossible to deal with, try, she's struggling, and I can choose how to respond and how to support her. 3, practice the mantra, daily. Say it in the mirror, say it in the car, whisper it under your breath when the shame voice gets loud. I am enough and I matter. And number 4, breathe yourself back to center. When you feel yourself going one down into shame or one up into superiority, pause. Take a deep breath. Slow down. Remind yourself equal, not less, not more. If you've gone down into shame, practice pulling yourself back up. If you've gone one up into superiority, practice pulling yourself back down. Do these reps, and over time, you'll notice that you're no longer ruled by contempt. You're living full respect life. And that's the space where connection grows and your marriage begins to improve. I want you to set aside a quiet moment this week and sit with these reflection questions. What does the voice in my head sound like when I fall short? Is it harsh, condemning, relentless? Whose voice does it remind me of? How often do I put myself one down in shame or one up in superiority? Which side do I default to, and how does that impact my wife? What would change in my marriage if I stepped off the contempt conveyor belt? If I lived with full respect for myself and for her, how would the tone of our home shift? You don't have to rush your answers. Sit with them. Think of these questions as a mirror, showing you where contempt still sneaks in and where change is possible. Here's my closing takeaway from this episode. Contempt is poison. Whether you turn it on yourself in shame or on your wife in superiority, both kill connection and destroy marriages. Real strength comes from healthy self-esteem, the kind that lets you say, I messed up and I still matter. The kind that lets you step out of contempt and back into respect. Because your marriage doesn't need a man who tears himself down or a man who tears his wife down. It needs a man who can hold steady, who can live with full respect for himself and for her. That's what creates trust. That's what creates love that lasts. If you're ready to take the next step and go a layer deeper, check out my free workshop, The 3 Secrets to Becoming a Better Husband Without Endless Therapy, Hating the Process, or Becoming Someone You're Not. Inside, I walk you through the roadmap, and you'll also learn more about Better Husband Academy, which is where this work really comes alive. Go to betterhusbandsecrets.com or click the link in the show notes. Thanks for sticking with me until the end. I hope this has been helpful to you and your journey of becoming a better husband. I'm Angelo Santiago, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much for listening. Before you go, I have a quick request. If you've ever gotten any value from the show and you want the show to continue to grow, to access bigger and more knowledgeable guests, and to keep providing you with more ways that you can be a better husband in your marriage, simply leave a rating and a review if you're listening on Apple or Spotify. It only takes a few seconds, and those reviews go a long way in attracting more experts and bigger guests to the show. So if you're feeling up to it, as a favor to me, I'd love to see a rating and a review from you. Thank you so much for being a listener and all your support.